Okay. So in unit number 2, we discuss 4 topics basically: helical gear, spiral gear, worm and worm wheel, and bevel gear. These 4 topics we discuss. We start with helical gear. So in helical gear, we discuss about terminology of helical gear, virtual number of teeth concept of helical gear, and finally force analysis of helical gear. So in first topic, that is in terminology. Before going for terminology, we discuss what helical gear is basically. So in helical gear, teeth already we've seen are inclined to the axis, and that teeth are inclined to axis at some angle. That angle is called as a helix angle, and the range of the angle is varying from 7 to 23 degree. We've seen in helical gear, as the teeth are inclined, so there is gradual engagement, which reduces shocks and stresses during meshing of the gears. So the operation that we obtain by using helical gears is smooth and quiet. We also seen these gears are used for a high-speed transmission, and the efficiency of this drive by using helical gears is about 98%. One more thing, tooth strength is greater because the teeth are longer, and also we see greater surface contact on the teeth. Thus, they carry more load than a spur gear. And you can see the helical gears are widely used in automobiles. So this is all about a basics of helical gear, what helix angle is, how much range is, how the helical gears are used for quiet operation. Means there is quiet operation as compared to spur gear. Efficiency is 93%, and they're used for high-speed transmission. Then we have to discuss the problem with helical gear. Also, we discuss that is in helical gear there is problem of axial thrust. So we see here the longer surface contact reduces efficiency of helical gear related to spur gear. So efficiency of this helical gear is less as compared to spur gear, but it can transfer more power as well as a smooth operation. But in disadvantages we discuss, it is having a less efficiency as compared to spur gear. Remember, helical gear is having good efficiency as compared to other gears, but as compared to spur gear, it is having less efficiency. Important thing here, they induce axial thrust in one direction on a bearing. How this axial thrust is produces, or how this axial thrust is produced, that we discuss in detail in next slides. So what happens if we consider two helical gears basically? As in a single helical gear, there is problem of axial thrust. To avoid this, in addition to this one gear, one more gear is used, and we observe here these helical gears are which are in mesh are of opposite hand. So if it is of left hand helix, this will be of a right hand helix. So these two gears which is mesh are having a opposite hand helix. So to avoid the problem of axial thrust, now let's say axial thrust acting in one particular direction. Now, in which direction axial thrust acts? For that, I will show you these slides. So this is a very good slide to explain how axial thrust is acting. To find out direction of axial thrust, you need to consider two gears, and you have to observe which gear is driver first. So here, let's consider case number 1. In this case, this one is a driver and this one is a driven. As a driver is of right hand driver, so we need to curl our fingers of right hand in such a way that curved fingers indicate direction of the rotation. At that time, your thumb gives you the direction of axial thrust. Means this direction, we have to curl our fingers in direction of a rotation. So if I curl like that, then thumb will give you the direction of axial thrust. So this thumb will give you the direction of axial thrust. So it means you have to curl your fingers of right hand, if right hand driver, if left hand, then left hand, in direction of rotation. So if I curl my fingers in direction of rotation, my thumb gives the direction of axial thrust. That we discuss in detail during regular lectures. So if it is towards this side, then on driven gear, axial thrust will act in a opposite side. So like this, we can determine direction of axial thrust by using a thumb rule. So remember this concept, how to determine axial thrust. And if you know axial thrust, that means when axial thrust is acting, if there is pair of helical gears in mesh. And to avoid this axial thrust, two helical gears pairs are used. Remember here, let's say this will be a right hand helical gear, so it meshes with left hand. So the next gear pair, as this is of right hand, we use here it is of a left hand. and this will be of a right hand. So two pairs of opposite hands are used. So what happens if, let's assume that this one is driver, right hand helix, and it is rotating in upward direction. So you know that if it is rotating upward direction, axial thrust, and assuming that this is driver for a pair number 1, then axial thrust acting in this gear pair is acting toward this side. How it will be? Again, use right hand rule. Okay, and of course on this gear it will be in a opposite direction. So as it is a compound wheel, this will rotate in the same direction. So axial thrust act on this gear will be opposite of this, and on this gear will be opposite of this. So net axial thrust here it is, let's say it is plus, and this will be minus of same magnitude. Hence net axial thrust acting on this gear pair is 0. So this is the advantage of a herringbone gear. So herringbone gears, that is double helical gears, are used to avoid the problem of, or to eliminate the problem of axial thrust in case of a helical gear. So we discussed concept of axial thrust and how it is eliminated by using double helical gear called as a herringbone gear. Now some terminologies we have to discuss. In helical gear, to define the terms, we consider two planes. One is transverse plane shown by TT here, and other plane is normal plane. So to obtain normal plane, we have to cut that gear normal to the teeth. So let's say this is teeth are cut in a perpendicular plane. So this one is a transverse plane and this one is a normal plane. So we can observe different terms along the transverse as well as normal plane one by one. So first definition that we have to define is helix angle. Helix angle already defined. Helix angle is nothing but angle made by gear teeth with axis of the gear. So this is, let's say this is the one top view of the helical gear, and this is transverse plane shown. So this is gear teeth, and its angle made by this teeth with axis is called as a helix angle. In simple language you can say, and denoted by alpha. Then we have to define pitch. As there are transverse plane and normal plane, we have to define pitch in two ways. That is transverse circular pitch and normal circular pitch. As we know, definition of pitch or circular pitch is same. It is known to you that the definition of circular pitch is nothing but distance between corresponding points on adjacent teeth. And if this distance, that is distance between corresponding points on adjacent teeth, is measured okay. So if this distance between the corresponding points on adjacent teeth, which is definition of circular pitch, is measured along a pitch circle, in transverse plane, then it is called a transverse circular pitch. So if circular pitch, in simple language you can say, if circular pitch is measured along a transverse plane, like this plane I'm saying, along this plane, then it is called a transverse circular pitch. But if this is measured along a normal plane, means you can see here, sorry, this one is normal plane, then it is a normal circular pitch. So circular pitch definition same. Along the transverse plane it is called transverse circular pitch, and along the normal plane it is called the normal circular pitch, denoted by PT, that is transverse circular pitch, and PN for a normal circular pitch. Now if we try to find out relation between these, we can see here, that means it is the point let's consider these 2 points. Okay, so to understand this concept or relation between Mn and Mt, this slide is visible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can see this. This one is a Pn and this one is Pt. as it is along normal plane and this is along a transverse plane. They are related by angle alpha. So relation between Pn and Pt is cos alpha is equal to Pn upon Pt. That is Pn is equal to Pt cos alpha, or Pt is equal to Pn upon cos alpha. That is equation number 1. And further, we can express pitch in terms of module. As we know, basic formula for circular pitch is pi into m, and hence, so this circular pitch is equal to pi into m. So if we put further here, we get relation between Mn and Mt. Okay. So relation between Mn and Mt and Pn and Pt we can determine by using this simple terminologies. So we seen what is circular pitch, transverse circular pitch, normal circular pitch, helix angle, and now the next one is pressure angle. As we know, pressure angle already we defined in unit number 1, that is angle between common tangent and common normal. So here again we will define this pressure angle along a transverse plane and along a normal plane. Means the terminologies we define in a spur gear that we need to apply, but along the two planes, transverse and normal. So if pressure angle is measured along a transverse plane, it is called the transverse pressure angle, denoted by pi suffix t. And if pressure angle is measured along a normal plane, then it is called the normal pressure angle. And we can prove that the relation between this transverse pressure angle and normal pressure angle is this much, that is cos of alpha is equal to tan phi n upon tan phi t. For this, one more derivation is there. We discuss in next topic, in next slides. So we seen transverse pressure angle, normal pressure angle, relation between transverse and normal pressure angle, and helix angle. Axial pitch also we define. Axial pitch is nothing but distance between corresponding points on adjacent teeth measured along a axial direction. If the pitch is measured along a axial direction, then it is called the axial pitch. Now, next concept here it is in helical gears we have to define a virtual number of teeth. There is one concept called the virtual number of teeth, or a number of teeth on equivalent spur gear. As we know all formulas for a spur gear, in order to use the analysis of spur gear for helical gear, what we consider is, we consider two planes, that is transverse plane and normal plane. So if helical gear is viewed along the normal plane, like say along this plane, if you observe, then, so if you see along this plane, perpendicular to normal plane, then it will appear as a spur gear. So to find out equivalent spur gear, or to get the equations of equivalent spur gear, what we do is, here we cut this helical gear. You can see here, this helical gear is cut along a normal plane. And if you cut along the normal plane, then its sectional view will be ellipse. Is ellipse of radius, this ellipse having two diameters, semi-major and semi-minor axis. So it is having two diameters of radius r and r upon cos alpha. While if you consider this gear tooth profile along this plane, along normal plane, it will be equivalent to a spur gear having pitch circle radius this much. So radius of equivalent spur gear is RE, this radius RE, and its section is equivalent to a ellipse. And that equivalent radius of spur gear we can find out by finding radius of the ellipse. So to find out this equivalent radius of spur gear, we use concept of radius of ellipse, which is equal to R equivalent is nothing but So we were discussing concept of equivalent number of equivalents per gear. To find out that, I told you have to cut this helical gear along a normal plane. It will appear as an ellipse, and this ellipse also, if you see in this gear to profile along a normal plane, you can see here this gear to profile along normal plane is equivalent to a spur gear having radius is equal to Re, and radius of that equivalent spur gear is given by R equivalent is equal to semi-major axis square upon semi-minor axis square. That is R upon cos alpha. Semi-major axis of ellipse is R upon cos alpha, while semi-minor axis is R. So finally, we'll obtain relation R equivalent is equal to R upon cos square alpha, and D equivalent is equal to, further we get D upon cos square alpha. So it is radius of equivalent spur gear when we cut it along a normal plane. So Re is pitch circle radius of equivalent spur gear, which is, and relation between R equivalent and pitch circle radius of helical gear is this much. R equivalent is equal to R upon cos square alpha, and D equivalent is equal to D upon cos square alpha. Now from this radius and diameter relations, we can also derive equations for teeth, that is concept of virtual number of teeth. So number of teeth on equivalent spur gear is called as the equivalent number of teeth or a virtual number of teeth. It means if I cut this helical gear along a normal plane, then that, and if you observe calculate that teeth, then it is called as a virtual number of teeth or equivalent number of teeth. The concept of equivalent spur gear just we discussed. So number of teeth on that equivalent spur gear are called as a equivalent number of teeth or a virtual number of teeth, or sometimes also called as a formative number of teeth. So to find out that, we use simple relations of module and diameter. As we know, normal module is equal to D upon T, that is T is equal to D upon Mn, but we know that D, that is equivalent diameter of spur gear, is equal to D upon cos square alpha. So by putting D in this expression, we can find out T is equal to D upon Mn into cos square alpha. Further, we can put D as, for this Mn is equal to Mt cos alpha. So as Mn is equal to Mt cos alpha, T equivalent is equal to Mt into cos cube alpha. So this is our final expression for a virtual number of teeth. For a virtual number of teeth, so T equivalent is equal to, actually T equivalent D upon Mt into cos cube alpha. Further, in terms of T, we can write it is nothing but, this expression is nothing but T. So T equivalent is equal to T upon cos cube alpha. So just we discuss relation between virtual number of teeth and actual teeth. So that relation is T equivalent is equal to T upon cos square alpha. If you remember, relation for D equivalent is D upon cos square alpha, while it is T equivalent is equal to D upon T upon cos cube alpha. So we need to remember relations between T, D, T and T. And the last topic in helical gear is force analysis. So in helical gear, we've seen there are forces like axial force acts along the axis and radial force acts in radial direction. At the same time, there will be a tangential force. So in helical gear, remember it is very important to understand which are the different forces acting in each gear. So in helical gear, there are three types of forces: tangential force, radial force, and axial force. Remember, this tangential force is responsible for torque or power transmission, while this radial force and axial force are not desirable. But this radial force is trying to separate out the two gears, while this axial force is producing thrust. So we can analyze now these forces with the help of this force cube considered here. So we can find out relations between this Ft, Fr, Fa and the resultant force F. And so for that, for finding this, we know we just consider this three. I'm not going in detail of this derivation. I just remember the formulas. I will tell you formulas. So by considering different triangles, we can find out relations like we seen here, relation between FR and F, that is FR is equal to F sin phi n. Then also we see another expression, that is FA is equal to FT tan alpha, relation between FA and FT tan alpha, relation between FR and F, that is FR is equal to F sin phi n. Then we know, yes, of course, FT is equal to T upon R, and relation between FR and FT. In terms of this, finally, we can prove that this cos alpha is equal to tan phi n upon tan phi t. So that expressions or relations between different forces are used to derive this expression, that is cos alpha is equal to tan phi n upon tan phi t. So it is all about force analysis. We consider different forces like FR, FT, and FA, the relations by considering the geometry of the diagram considered. And finally, we prove that cos alpha is equal to tan of phi n upon tan of phi t. Then we discuss numericals on helical gear based on the formulas discussed. So numericals already discussed in the lectures. Today we will not discuss numericals. I just want to revise theories. Okay, so this is all about helical gear concepts. What we discuss, I repeat again. A simple what helical gear is. So the concept of helical gear, its advantages, disadvantages. We see advantage of axial thrust, and to eliminate this thrust, we use double helical gears or a herringbone gear. Then we see how to determine direction of axial thrust. Then terminology of helical gears, including helix angle, transverse and normal circular pitch, transverse and normal pressure angle, relations between them, and finally the concept of axial pitch. Then the concept of virtual number of teeth, and or you can say number of teeth on a equivalent spur gear. How it is obtained, that also be seen, and the relations between T and T, that is T is equal to T upon cos cube alpha, and D and D, that is D is equal to D upon cos square alpha. And finally, the force analysis of a helical gear, which involves three forces FR, FT, and FA, and relations between them. Also, we seen expression for finding or for deriving this, that is cos alpha is equal to tan phi n upon tan phi t. So this is all about helical gear. Yes, anyone want to say something? Anyone want to ask something about helical gear? Hello? Okay. If not, then we'll go for a next gear, that is a spiral gear. This slide is visible. Spiral gear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So actually, spiral gear, you can say it is nothing but a special case of helical gear with some specifications. So spiral gears are called as a skew gears or a cross helical gear. Is it visible to all? PPT of spiral gear is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So spiral gears are called as the skew gears or a cross helical gears. Remember, these are used for a non-parallel and non-intersecting shafts. So transmit power between this type of shafts, between non-parallel, non-intersecting. Actually, we can say when helical gear, which is shown here, is used to transmit power between non-parallel and non-intersecting shaft, then that helical gear is called as a spiral gear, sometimes called as a cross helical gear, or also called as a skew gears. You can notice here, there is point contact between the mating teeth when the two spiral gears are in mesh. So it is important thing. As there is point contact, so these gears are used for a low load transmission. They are not used for a high load transmission, and they are used in different automobiles or in a measurement instruments. It is the basics of spiral gear. You can see one more here. We seen when two helical gears are in mesh, they must be of opposite hand. But this is not the case in case of spiral gear. For a spiral gears, they can be of a same hand or maybe of a opposite hand. This is basic difference between helical and a spiral gear. Here, the two gears may be of same or opposite hand, can be in mesh. So as in case of helix angle, in case of helical gear, we call it as helix angle. That is angle made by teeth with axis is called helix angle. But in spiral angle, generally we refer it as a spiral angle. So spiral angle is nothing but a helix angle only, but for a spiral gear, we call it as a spiral angle. One more thing you remember, whenever two spiral gears are in mesh having different spiral angles, the spiral angles are different, then the transverse module is also different. As their transverse module is different, and hence for specifying size of spiral gears, we use normal module. So that is the concept of normal module, why it is defined by spiral module. Hence to define the spiral gear, to specify the spiral gears, normal module is used. As why it is, because I just told you the spiral angles may be different, and if it is different, then transverse module is not same. So to define the spiral gears or specifying the spiral gears, normal module is used. I'm saying always use. Then as we discussed, the spiral gears may be of left hand or right hand. Means the two gears in mesh may be of same hand or opposite hand. So consider the case one, when the two spiral gears of same hand is in mesh, and the second case when two spiral gears of opposite hand are in mesh. And we discuss in the regular classes this expression. So when two spiral gears are of same hand, then the shaft angle, that is angle between the two axes, let's say this one, this shaft and this shaft, or I'm saying axis, is nothing but, sorry, this one. It is not shaft. This one is shaft, okay. So when we determine angle between these two shafts, it is nothing but a shaft angle, that is theta. And if the two spiral gears are of same hand, then we can prove that the shaft angle theta is equal to alpha 1 plus alpha 2. While if the two gears are of opposite hand, then you can see here the shaft angle theta is nothing but alpha 1 minus alpha 2. So when of same hand, the shaft angle is equal to addition of spiral angles, while when of opposite hands, then the shaft angle is equal to alpha 1 minus alpha 2. That's what we discuss now. When of same hand, when of opposite hands, what is their formula? That is theta is equal to alpha 1 plus alpha 2, and theta is equal to alpha 1 minus alpha 2. So we just discussed the concept of shaft angle, that is theta is equal to alpha 1 plus alpha 2 and theta is equal to alpha 1 minus alpha 2. Now, one more topic is there. You can say central distance between the spiral gears. So after basic terminologies, you define central distance. So central distance in spiral gear is equal to, again this concept is same, it is nothing but radius of the spiral gear 1 plus radius of spiral gear 2, that is R1 plus R2. And further, we can define it as R1 in terms of module and teeth, that is R is equal to MT by 2. It is for 1, it is MT1 into T1 by 2. For 2, it is MT2 into T2 by 2. So if I add this, that is central distance is equal to R1 plus R2, if we say, then put in terms of MT1, MT2, and further express this MT as the transverse module will be different for spiral gears, hence express in terms of Mn, that is normal module. So central distance, if we express in terms of normal module, if we take some common terms, our final expression is this much. So center distance formula for a spiral gear is like this. That is central distance is equal to Mn into T1. As I take T1 common, Mn into T1 by 2 in bracket 1 upon cos alpha 1 plus g upon cos alpha 2. For helical gear, it is different. For spur gear, it is different. So in each case, we must be careful about finding or deriving the central distance formula. So for spiral gear, it is Mn, that is normal module, into T1, T1 gear 1 upon 2 into 1 upon cos alpha 1 upon plus g upon cos alpha 2, where g is gear ratio, that is T2 by T1. It's a formula for central distance of a spiral gear. Then we derive expression for efficiency. And again, for finding efficiency, we consider different forces acting on a spiral gear. So like helical gear, here also different force like tangential force, axial force, and a normal reaction also considered here. So it is combination of, I'm saying the resultant force F is resultant of axial force and tangential force. So in spiral gear, we discuss two forces, that is axial and tangential, and its resultant. And we also find out relation between resultant force and normal reaction Fn. So by considering this diagram, we did express tangential force in terms of F, axial force in terms of F. And it's very simple. If you see the expressions for tangential and axial force, so we can see here the relation between tangential and axial force. So tangential force and F, the resultant force is denoted by, or relation between them is Ft1 is equal to F cos of alpha 1 minus phi. If it is Ft2, then it is F cos alpha 2 plus phi. You can see here Ft1 is F cos alpha 1 minus phi, Ft2 is F cos alpha 2 plus phi. So tangential force 1 is known, tangential force 2 is known. Then we can express work output. We can find out work output and work input. While efficiency is ratio of work output upon work input. But work output is nothing but torque into omega. So T into omega is nothing but output power, and Ti into omega is nothing but input power. So to find out efficiency, as we are going to find efficiency, but for efficiency, we find out first forces, that is tangential force, axial force. Already expression for tangential force are find out. That is Ft2 is equal to F cos alpha 2 plus phi, and Ft1 is equal to F cos alpha 1 minus phi. Then from tangential forces, we can find out torque. From torques, we find out work output and work input. And finally, for efficiency, we find out output upon input formula. So this is one simplified version of the efficiency formula. Further, we can determine value of d2n2 upon d1n1, this term. So next step, that is first step, is find out efficiency expression from work output upon work input, that is from torques. Then determine this value again, that is d2n2 upon d1n1 separately, put here. And so this d2n2 upon d1n1 is so here we also find out d2n2 upon d1n1, and then to find out d2 and d1, we just use this expression. So by simply, we can determine d2n2 upon d1n1, it is equal to cos alpha 1 upon cos alpha 2. If I put this value in the previous expression, then we get this expression. So it is one of the important equation for a efficiency. Further, this is important equation. Efficiency is equal to, by putting alpha 1 alpha 2 in some theta, efficiency is equal to cos of theta plus pi plus cos of alpha 1 minus alpha 2 minus pi upon the same term. Only difference is plus minus. So likewise, we can derive expression for efficiency by using force equations, that is tangential force, work output, work input. And further, now we need to find out expression for maximum efficiency. For finding maximum efficiency, what we consider is, we know that this efficiency is maximum when there is problem with slide. So here we derive expression for efficiency, that is this one, and to find out maximum efficiency, this term must be 1, and it is 1 only when this term in a bracket of cos will be 0, that is alpha 1, I'm saying this one, this term is equal to 1 means alpha 1 minus alpha 2 minus pi is equal to 0. So for finding maximum efficiency, we can consider this condition. This term is equal to 1 means this bracket term is equal to 0, and hence we derive that, we will derive for maximum efficiency alpha 1 is equal to theta plus pi by 2 and alpha 2 is equal to theta minus pi by 2. These are the conditions for a maximum efficiency of a spiral gear. Further, as we determine expression for tangential force, we can also determine it for axial force. So axial force is equal to F into sine of alpha 1 minus pi, and F2 is equal to F into sine of alpha 2 plus pi. These are the expressions for a axial force. So here we derive expression for tangential force, then efficiency, and now for axial forces for a spiral gear. The next topic is, last topic is velocity of sliding. So we know that these are the peripheral velocities V1 and V2. As this one is axis of gear 1, this one is axis of gear 2, and the teeth will slide along a common, this means the two teeth must be slide along their common contact point. So let's say this will be a common point of contact. Along this two teeth will slide. Hence sliding velocity is equal to, if it is V1, if it is V2, its component of V1 along this common tangent is V1 sin alpha 1, and component of V2 is V2 sin alpha, V1 sin alpha 1 and V2 sin alpha 2. So the resultant is V1 sin alpha 1 plus V2 sin alpha 2, and hence sliding velocity is equal to V1 sin alpha 1 plus V2 sin alpha 2. Further, you can write also V1 V2 in terms of R1 omega 1, as Vs is equal to V1 sin alpha 1 plus V2 sin alpha 2. Express this V1 in terms of R1 omega 1, V2 in terms of R2 omega 2. So our final expression for Vs is equal to R1 omega 1 into sin alpha 1 plus R2 omega 2 into sin alpha 2. That is your expression for a sliding velocity of a spiral gear. So in spiral gears, we discuss topic like, first topic we discuss basics of spiral gear. What spiral gear is basically, how it is different from helical gear, what is difference between spiral and helical. Then concept of shaft angle, when are of same hand, when are of opposite hand, their formulas. There is theta is equal to alpha 1 plus alpha 2 and theta is equal to alpha 1 minus alpha 2. Then the concept of center distance, its formula for spiral gear, that is this one. And finally, efficiency expression. For finding efficiency expression, we consider tangential forces. Then from tangential forces, we find out torque, output torque, input torque, then power output and power input. Then efficiency is equal to, the same way we proceed. So first find out tangential force, then input power, then tangential force 2, then output power, then take ratio of them, we get efficiency. Simplify this expression to this term, that is efficiency is equal to this much. Then finally find out expression for a maximum efficiency by putting this term is equal to 1. So condition for maximum efficiency is alpha 1 is equal to theta plus pi by 2, alpha 2 is equal to theta minus pi by 2. Finally also determine expression for a axial thrust on a driver as well as axial thrust on a driven. And then the concept of velocity of sliding for a spiral gears. So this is all about helical gear and spiral gear. Any doubt here? Yes. Hello.
No, sir.
Okay. Still now we discuss helical and spiral gear. Uh, Actually, our next lecture is third lecture, but we'll continue with second. So next topic is actually two small topics are remaining. That is worm and bevel, and then gear train, and then we'll discuss about unit test. So we'll take now break for 10 minutes. Then we start our next lecture.